Ocarina of Time, one of my favourite Zelda games ever. So recently, I was thinking about picking up Ocarina of Time for the 3DS, as I will be picking up my very first 3DS very soon. Yes, I've never had one. But it got me thinking about the more recent Zelda game, Breath of the Wild, and how does that game compare to Ocarina of Time? So I thought I'd go through some of the best parts of each game and compare them to each other, and then decide if Breath of the Wild is truly as good as the masterpiece that is Ocarina of Time. Also, be sure to remember that this is my personal opinion, and feel free to leave your thoughts on the topic in the comments. Anyway, let's get into this. So, we will be starting with the story of each game. Now, in Ocarina of Time, you start off as a young Link venturing into this never before seen Hyrule on a quest to save the kingdom. The first 3 dungeons in the game you'll play as Child Link, but then all of a sudden you're ready to draw the Master Sword from the Temple of Time, and that iconic scene of turning into an adult plays. And what an amazing moment it was, not just for the story, but also for just iconic moments in gaming. You then go on to tackle a further 6 main dungeons, including Ganon's castle. Along with this, we get 3 mini dungeons. Once you become an adult and begin your new quest to save Princess Zelda, that's when my favourite part of the story kicks in. Travelling across an overrun Hyrule by Ganon's evil, and going through each dungeon building up and up to that final boss fight, that is one heck of a story for me. Now, Breath of the Wild does have a pretty good story as well. Perhaps not as in depth and unique as Ocarina of Time, as Breath of the Wild has you start with awakening from a 100 years slumber to find out Princess Zelda has been took by Ganon, and you don't really know how until a bit later on in the game when you start talking to people. So you must go and save her. Now, with Breath of the Wild being an open world game, it does kind of take away a lot of the traditional story elements, such as following a certain path throughout the game. As in Breath of the Wild, we can just go straight to Ganon after finishing the Great Plateau if we want, which is something I was personally not the biggest fan of, but I still enjoyed how open world the game was. However, the story of the champions I found quite unique and really liked, especially the story of Mipha and Link. Watching those cutscenes brought out some true emotion and really was special to me. So perhaps the main story wasn't as good as Ocarina of Time's main story, but the story of all 4 champions makes up for that. If I had to pick one which had a better story in my opinion, it would have to be Ocarina of Time for me, mainly because of how unique it was compared to Breath of the Wild. I mean, you're a different age for portions of the game, and you're travelling 7 years in time. So for the game with a better story, my pick goes to Ocarina of Time. Now, for this next one, I was going to compare the dungeons. However, if you regularly watch my videos, you will already know what I think of the Divine Beasts. So, I will be comparing the weapons and armour system. Now, starting with Ocarina of Time, we get a pretty nice inventory building up throughout the game, acquiring all the necessary key items in each dungeon to progress. And I love that feeling of finding a new item in each dungeon, as I found dungeons pretty hard in Ocarina of Time when I played it for the first time. So finding items for each dungeon almost gave me a little boost of confidence to progress. Along with weapons, we got tunics, the Kokiri tunic, Goron and Zora tunic, which all gave us elemental protection apart from the Kokiri one, which I loved the idea of at the time. Well, in Breath of the Wild, just like changing to open world, Nintendo decided to change up the weapons and armor system, and I really loved it, as we can now get a huge variety of weapons and armor, and upgrade and modify some armors, which is awesome, and something that tops Ocarina of Time's system. Although, there is one part of Breath of the Wild's system I was not a fan of, and that is the fact that we don't get any key items. Wait, what? Yeah, that is right, no key items for each dungeon. Now, in all fairness, those dungeons wouldn't need a key item anyway. But all that aside, I'd say both Ocarina of Time and Breath of the Wild's weapon and armor system is very good in their own ways. Now for the final thing that in my opinion can make a Zelda game that little bit better than another Zelda game is the soundtrack. We shall start with Ocarina of Time. Now Ocarina of Time is right up there, and I'd say it's in my top 3 Zelda soundtracks, along with Twilight Princess, as it has so many memorable and nostalgic songs all throughout the game, and every area in the game has some sort of feel to it that you can just never forget. Whether it be the epic Hyrule field theme or the creepy Shadow Temple, Ocarina of Time does not disappoint in music at all, and the title theme is by far one of my favourite Nintendo tracks of all time. Now for Breath of the Wild. I have kind of took a bit of hate in some ways towards the soundtrack, but I have come to realise that the lack of music is kind of fitting for the game. Now Breath of the Wild does have some really good songs in it, such as Mipha's theme, Lurelin Village, the Staples theme, and of course that epic Hyrule Castle theme, which are all amazing and fit in really well with the game, especially Hyrule Castle. And the little overworld music does fit in with the theme of exploring this vast land of Hyrule, but at the end of the day, my favourite between the two soundtracks is definitely going to be Ocarina of Time. But I can admit, exploring in Breath of the Wild could be a little bit weird if you had some sort of epic Hyrule field theme playing the whole time. Now for the big question. Is Breath of the Wild as good as the classic masterpiece Ocarina of Time? I'd say if you take all these factors into consideration, both games have certain points that are done better than others in each game, and with a difference of 19 years between each game's release, I'd say it's pretty fair to say Breath of the Wild is just as good as Ocarina of Time. Now, it may not have the best dungeons and story, but it makes up for that in the open world adventure and combat in the game. So, in my opinion, Breath of the Wild is up to the standard of Ocarina of Time. Well, I really hope you all enjoyed this sort of Zelda game versus Zelda game type of video, and be sure to let me know if you think Breath of the Wild is up to Ocarina of Time's standard in the comments, and what you liked about each game in particular. If you didn't know, I have a Discord server you can all join and chat to me and many other Zelda and Nintendo fans, along with sharing videos, pictures, friend codes and much more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter for daily updates and posts of everything Nintendo. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.